Rangers Radio Network and joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Jared, I know the Rangers they've struggled. We know the story. We know what the people have gone. Is this team starting to pique the interest of anybody, the Rangers fans, maybe around the DFW airport, airport around the DFW area as well?
I think so, Smokey. And first of all, I appreciate your patience with my schedule. I'm sorry that I kept pushing things back. So thank you very much. And by the way, I texted you and I called you David. I've never once called you David. I thought after I sent that text, it's the most awkward thing. I've never referred to you anything other than Mr. Smoke or Smokey. So never again, David.
That's okay. Yeah, no, it made me feel like I was your father or something like that. Yeah.
So, right. Yeah, I think the sentiment, there's a range, right? I think some people maybe disregard the first part you said about 65, 70 wins, and, we're focused on 110 wins now. But I think most people who really kind of understand what's going on really embrace exactly what you said, which is not sure what this is going to look like in September, but right now, this team's a lot of fun to watch, and they are. And people have asked me why, and I don't know exactly why. My thought going into the year, and I'm sure I said this with you guys because I told anyone who wanted to listen that this team might have a worse record or worse win percentage than last year, but they're going to be more enjoyable to watch. And my thought was you've got a bunch of young guys and a bunch of guys who have something to prove. Even Joey Gallo, he's not a young guy really anymore, certainly not on this team, but he's got something to prove. And then the veterans you have, Brock Holt and Charlie Culberson, they fully understand and embrace their role. You don't have veterans who think they're more than what they are at this point in their career, or veterans who they're just kind of stuck contractually. They don't want to be a part of a rebuild. Everyone who's here presumably wants to be here, and they like their role. Maybe some guys want to play a little more, but no one is disgruntled. And I don't know if that was my thought going into the year. After watching them, I think that stuff's true. I do think this team plays hard and has that chip on the shoulder because individually they all stand to prove. But I think there are also baseball parts to this. This team isn't an automatic out when it gets to two strikes. Last year, they were the worst two-strike hitting team in the league, and it really wasn't close. This year, they're top 10 in the league in two-strike hitting, and I just think that makes it more enjoyable. They don't walk people. No one likes watching a game filled with the great thing. Hey, if your guy walks, it's a great job, but it's not fun to watch. And when your team is the team issuing the walks, it's even more. And this team has not been very good in that department, really, for the last 5 or 6 years. But they've been really good at not issuing walks. And I think those things really do make a difference. At one point, this team wasn't hitting a ton of home runs, and so they were generating offense in other ways. They're actually now top 5 in the majors in home runs. But I think you get a good mix. They don't rely on the home run ball to generate runs. While they've hit a lot of home runs, it does not make up a huge percentage of their offense. So you see a lot of rallies and a lot of base running and balls in play. And I just think those things in general have combined to make this team a lot more enjoyable to watch.
How excited should we be about Dane Dunning?
Yeah, so I guess what I'd say is if the excitement scale is, hey, this is a future ace, I'd say maybe let's lower the bar a little bit. But if your bar is, hey, the Rangers acquired someone who can pitch start playoff games for them, I think you're on point. I don't know if he's a 1 or a 2 or whatever number we want to assign. But here's the thing: we're now in a world where it used to be your top 4 starters would start playoff games for you, and maybe if your 4th starter was really weak, you would try and just shoehorn in 3 and figure out a way to make it work. But as we saw last year, that's not even really a thing anymore. I mean, the Dodgers won a World Series, and it seemed like every other game they were just going with a bullpen approach. So it's not really a guarantee that your 4 best pitchers would start a playoff game. I think Dane Dunning is good enough and will be good enough to where when the Rangers are back in the playoffs, and he's hopefully still here, that they have confidence in using him as a starter and don't feel like, well, for Dane Dunning's turn in the rotation, we've got to have a bullpen game. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I would characterize what we've seen. And I think his aptitude is really high, and his ability to adjust. Yesterday we saw him against a team that is very good at hitting the sinker, and in Dane Dunning, a pitcher who has thrown sinkers more than 55% of the time. We saw him use his slider more than he has in any other start. And what did it result in? Well, a career high in strikeouts. So I think that in Dane Dunning, you've got a guy who's a high IQ pitcher who maybe doesn't have like the Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer electricity, but he does have that intellect that helps him maximize everything he's got in that arm.
So back on December 21st of 2019, John Blake put up on his Twitter feed, the Rangers acquired, is it Adolis Garcia?
Yeah, it's Adolis Garcia.
From the St. Louis Cardinals. Paul, listen to this. For cash considerations, he had a pretty big numbers at AAA Memphis in 2019. They designated somebody else for assignment. When I saw that, I bet I didn't even blink. I bet I did not even register it. I had no idea. But then you start watching this kid play. And I know he's not like a rookie, but he brings an excitement to this team, no matter how long it's going to last, that I think he's one of the reasons I'm watching him play. He's not Tatis. He's not Acuna. I'm not being stupid here. He's not those guys. But for the Rangers, this guy's giving this team a shot in the arm. Who is he, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, he's a kid from Cuba who, I think all of these kids are success stories, whether they hit 500 or nothing in the major league, to get out of that horrible culture climate. I hope they're not tapping these phones because then that government might come after me. But, it's a horrible world that they live in there. And for him to get out of it, his older brother Adonis was a major leaguer. So he sort of, along with some of the other baseball players, helped pave the way. But he actually went to Japan and played in Japan and then defected afterwards, which is interesting. Played, as you mentioned, with the Cardinals organization. The Rangers got him. And then this past spring, I think it was on February 10th, if I have the date correct, the Rangers designated him for assignment. And you don't designate a guy for assignment if you're, sure that he's going to be an impact player. But I don't think that they just designated him simply because they were done with him. They needed to make room for Mike Foltynewicz. And I think strategically they assessed the rosters around the league and determined that at that point, February 10th, where a lot of rosters, 40-man rosters at least, are completed, there wasn't a team that was going to put him on the 40-man roster. And they guessed right. And so the Rangers were able to keep him. And he had a great spring. And he had a great spring in a way that, some guys have good springs, and you never know for sure, but you can kind of see through some spring training success. But he was doing things differently than he had in the past, or at least his prior spring training. And so we threw out there, hey, this guy might make the team, and, maybe he could contribute a little bit. And he didn't make the team, but he was up pretty shortly thereafter. None of us. No, I got asked this on Twitter today. Did you predict or did you foresee Adolis Garcia having this level of impact? If anyone suggests, and there's some people out there who I think might try and claim that they did, if anyone suggests that they knew that Adolis Garcia was going to be among the major league leaders in home runs and RBIs and be a major league or American League Player of the Week, and we're not even in mid-May, you're absolutely crazy. And you need to be on a lie detector test right away. None of us could have foreseen this. I mean, this is such a great story, Smokey. And I don't know what his future is. Is this a Danny Santana where he has a great year and then we don't hear from him much again? Yeah, that's possible. I mean, these things happen all the time. Those guys are a dime a dozen. Could he maybe he's not even a Danny Santana. Maybe he doesn't even make it through the year as a contributing player. But I'll tell you this. This guy's got better tools than Danny Santana ever had. And Danny Santana is the comp just because he's the most recent example of that type of guy who just, emerges. This guy's got great tools. And my guess, if I had to predict, I don't think he's Nelson Cruz, who's going to 10 years later still be hitting 30-plus home runs a year. I don't think that's necessarily his path. But I do think that this is a guy who is an everyday player, at least right now. The key for him, though, he doesn't walk a lot. And for guys who are sort of new with no skins on the wall, who don't walk a lot, typically that's a sign that says, hey, there are a lot of opportunities for the league to poke holes in what you do because you're not going to demonstrate the patience to deal with bad pitching. And by bad pitching, I mean pitches that aren't in the zone, not bad players on the mound. So he's going to have to, as teams start to pitch him differently, demonstrate that necessary level of patience. It's a tremendously tough hurdle for a lot of hitters to clear, and it's the reason why a lot of these guys never quite make it or stick. If he can do that, though, you've got a guy who he's got the tools to be an impact player, and certainly at minimum, an everyday rostered player who will get the chance to get a lot of playing time. Joey
Gallo had seemingly kind of moved past being the pace of strikeouts he's on for right now is pretty high. He's always going to be a guy who strikes out a lot, Jared. But how does he get back to what he was coming into this year, which is someone who had cut that down, gotten the average up, and it started, hitting the ball the other way every so often and not being just completely reliant on hitting it as far as he could?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've seen, in April he was getting on base a ton. He was striking out a lot. I think, with Joey, the key here, if you want to see Joey cut down the strikeouts, he's just got to make more contact in the zone. He is not a guy who strikes out a lot because he swings at everything. I just used that Adolis Garcia example. Adolis Garcia has, he's got a high strikeout rate because he's going to chase. He's going to give you that swing and miss on the pitch in the dirt, right? Joey doesn't do that very often at all. His chase rate is among the lowest, or phrased otherwise, among the best in Major League Baseball. But it's not uncommon for bigger-bodied, hard-swinging guys and longer-limbed guys. He has trouble just making contact in the zone. When he makes contact, it typically goes a long way. But Aaron Judge is a guy like this. But Aaron Judge has improved his ability to make contact. So that's why Aaron Judge is not a 230 hitter, but maybe a 270, 280 hitter. And so that's the next challenge for Joey. And I think he's trying to figure out the right swing to kind of balance the identity, like his true identity. Not to, he doesn't want to change who he is. Joey Gallo becomes a 20 home run a year guy and hits 250. That's not nearly as valuable as hitting 230, but still hitting 35 plus home runs. I know people don't like to hear that, but that's just the reality. So I think he's trying to figure out a way to change the swing a little bit to improve the contact, but not strip him of who he truly is at his core. And I think that's something that he's battling right now. And I just think in general, confidence is a big thing with him. I know it hurts for a lot of guys, but there's certain players, in every sport, we know them. They could be 0 for their last whatever, or maybe they haven't made a shot all game, or they just threw 3 straight interceptions, whatever it might be. But we know that between the ears, they don't care about any of that. I think Joey's a guy, he rides the wave of confidence, and he's had a good start to May, and hopefully that's now going to lead to a wave of strong production because I think he is in better spirits with what he's been doing here over the last week or so.
They won 3 out of 4 against the Red Sox, who lead the East. Then they win 3 out of 4 against the Twins, 2 out of 3 against the Mariners. Of course, tomorrow, they have the Sledgehammer Giants, who are 20-13 on the road for a couple of games. Astros coming up this weekend. They could go into a 5 or 6 game losing streak. I'm just telling you, Jared, that 9-8 game Saturday night just kind of got me excited. Not about the fact they're a playoff contender, they're not, but just watching guys just play balls to the wall, so to speak. And I wanted to have you come on and kind of explain who some of these stories are. We appreciate you as always.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. Hey, that Saturday night game, one of the most exciting games that the Rangers have played the last couple of years. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully more of that to come.
Thank you, Jared. That's Jared Sandler. Rangers Radio Network does an incredible job with them. Not just the pregame and postgame, but also a long, extended postgame call-in show, and on occasion a part of the broadcast as well. The Hall of Famer Eric Nadel as well. Now, coming up next, Hall of Fame columnist, writer John McClain, Houston Chronicle, next on Sick 'Em 365 Radio.
Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physician of Baylor Athletics. Our doctors